Hello and welcome back to From the Source podcast, episode 18. And I know on the previous episodes I've asked people to message me about what they want to talk about, and I've had quite a few people speaking to me that are pretty new to running. So just gonna say now that this episode's like geared towards new runners, beginner runners, people that are just starting off. So I've kind of just chucked together five little talking points, which I've previously spoke about on like other episodes, but kind of with a bit more detail and a few different points to speak about. So I'm going to speak about a big one, which is about your mindset when you're first starting off. A quick walkthrough on a simple like 8-week training plan. Kind of the pace and your breathing and your form and I'm trying to think of a different word for form then. Yeah, it'll come to me later on. About your form, some of the gear that you might need, ways to prevent some form of injuries happening when you're first starting off, and kind of like how to keep yourself motivated throughout, say, if you do the 8-week plan that I'm saying, or doing a different plan through Runner or Strava, or, making one up yourself. So starting off with mindset, which is a massive one when you're first starting off. It's all good talking about it with your mates, saying that you're going to start and giving it the big one and stuff like that. But then when it actually comes down to it, day one, you've got to start. That's crunch time. So your head's got to be in it, and you've got to be ready to remove any pressure that you're putting on yourself and just starting. There's a few books I've read recently about it's around like procrastination and stuff like that, where, we talk a good game and we put it off as much as we can. A bit like kind of what sometimes I do with the podcast or things we do in like life. You always find other things to do instead of what you really want to do. So you've got to start with some intensity, and that's not obviously thrashing out, 10, 800 meters and stuff, but intensity in terms of like, today's the day you're going to start, get to it. Don't fail on the first day. Just get to it, get out there, get your stuff on. And, if you've said to yourself you're going to do a 5K and you don't do the 5K the pace that you wanted to, just make sure you do the 5K. And I think it's about those little wins when you first start. And this is the same for, say, if I went onto like a bodybuilding plan tomorrow, I wouldn't be motivated. I initially wouldn't do it because I wouldn't be motivated by it. But if I was, you'd have to just start. Like, you've committed to it. First few times it's going to be a bit crap. You're going to feel a bit weak. But you've got to stick at it. And at the end of the day, the pace that you run that 5K at doesn't define that entire plan. And that's not you saying to yourself, oh my God, that's going to be my 5K time at the end. That's the whole idea, is the plan, is to build from the bottom up and continue with it. So, do 10, 20 minutes, 30 minutes if you wanted to. Just build those like little blocks of consistency all the way through, which will then allow you to get some more discipline to then obviously carry on with the plan or with the session. And this is something I've spoke about before, about like finding your why. And it's like a really cheesy way of talking about it and stuff, but you have to find your why in terms of like, you want to lose weight, you got a race coming up, you want to beat your friends at like your local park run or your local run club and stuff like that. You got to find like a why, but you got to find something that's not just a one hit wonder. It's got to be something that you can achieve on like small time scales, but there's a whole picture to it. Hence, like completing the race, yeah, you can do well week on week, but the end goal is the race. And that could also be beating your mates at it. So it can also just be about like feeling better within yourself, feeling healthier, losing a bit of weight to like an end goal of weight and stuff. But find that why, and that's the thing you hold on to when you're struggling on these sessions, because they will get hard, and some days are better than others. And 60% of my training plan, I don't really like doing it, but it's just for those one 1 or 2 days a week where it's like, oh, this feels good now. So yeah. Another point is kind of lowering your chances of failure each day. So something I do is I get my stuff out for the run in the morning the night before. It's laid out ready. I know it's there. It's like kind of in the way when I'm like trying to get out of bed and stuff like that. So it's always there, and it's always reminding me that tomorrow I'm getting up, and you get yourself up, and at the first it doesn't really work, but over time it just kind of eats away at me and it makes me get up really. So it's a good thing, but you'll find that yourself. You'll find something out that works for you, if that's like putting your phone downstairs to get you out of bed or anything. Coffee machine turns on downstairs. You just got to try and find something that like lowers your friction levels and your irritable levels to not wanting to do it. And the last point for the mindset is when I was talking at the start about intensity, but it's okay when you first start off to like walk in between. If you said you're going to do a 5K, it's okay to walk at like 3K for just a little bit. As long as you finish the 5K, I think what I always say to people, it always goes back to when you look back on it, it'll say a green tick that you've completed the 5 out of the 5K. It won't then say, oh, you walked 200 meters of it and stuff like that. So when you look back, it just gives you that extra little bit of motivation, like everything was fine. Walking a little bit of it isn't the worst thing. If you're just starting off and you never ran before, the walking is the start of it. That's, you're starting from like the bottom. So it's, that's also fine. It's just being smart with your training. Finish the session. Don't just like call it quits because you thought, oh, I've walked a little bit. It's game over. You've got to build your habits, your consistency, your discipline, building some form of aerobic base. If you're struggling to go out for a run that day, jump on like a C2 bike and do like double the distance you were going to run that day, but just like do it on the bike instead. Find a better way to do it. And now that brings me, nicely to this 8-week plan. And it's only brief, this, but, if anyone wants like an in-depth plan, let me know, because I'll be fine to send it over to you and stuff. But it's 8 weeks. Week 1, week 2, you can just start off with like a minute run, 1.5 to 2 minute walk, and then just do like 8 to 10 reps of that. And that'll probably be about 20-25 minutes of exercise for like the first 2 weeks. And then this is where you want to build it up for like, the ratio there is basically the first 2 weeks is like 0.5 to 1.5 ratio. And then week 3 is like a 1-to-1 ratio. So 2 minute run, 2 minute walk, 6 to 8 or 8 to 10 reps. And then 5 to 6 is where it flips the other way around, 2-to-1 ratio, 3 to 4 minute run, 1 to 2 minute walk, 6 to 8 reps a time, slowly building it up. And then week 7 and 8, where it's like the peak, is 5 to 8, 6 to 8 minute run, then 1 to 2 minute walk. You try and keep that walk closer to 1 than to 2, and then like 4 to 6 reps of that. So you constantly, so say that last one, you're doing 8 minute runs times 6, that's 48 minutes of running in total with 16 minutes of walking in between. So pretty much, obviously, just over an hour of exercise. So you're getting that, your body's getting used to that feeling of being on your feet, exercising. And then once you've done that 8-week plan, go back to week 1 of a new plan, and basically you want to be continuously running and kind of cutting out that walking unless you're doing an interval session where it's just like little sprints, stop, little sprints, but they're like more max out than continuously on your feet. So that's kind of like a good basis to start off. And obviously, like I said, if your abilities are further on than that plan, then you can tweak stuff, basically just removing the walking. And it's good because, each of those is like a 10-15% increase each week that I talk about. And then in the middle of all of that, those per week, you want to just be adding in 1 or 2 like short strength sessions a week. So that's like 30, 40 minutes max, working on isolated movements, working on that lower body, getting your legs stronger, you know, hips, core, calves take a lot of load when you're running. And then obviously adding in a rest or recovery day, which we speak about, to allow your body some time to recover. Because those first 5 weeks might be a bit tough on the body, but at the end of the day, you've got to look after yourself, and you know, you want to keep yourself going for that full 8-week plan. So yeah, that's kind of a bit of a basis of an 8-week plan, and you're working like 3 to 4 days a week. That'd be, if you're just starting off, pretty intense if you're just starting. But like I said, you know, if you're an intermediate runner and above, you still want to be keeping, you know, 3 to 4 weeks at least, 3 to 4 days a week at least training, keeping yourself moving and like working to that end goal, whatever that may be. And then pacing and breathing's a big one. If you can learn to pace yourself by being so conscious about what your pace is, because, you know, if you're keeping your heart rate down and your pace is good and you're breathing fine, you know, you should be able to run without running with a watch and actually know what pace you're running. But that just takes a lot of repetition for it. So obviously I've spoken about in previous episodes about your zones, your zone running and stuff, but a lot of that when you first start off just needs to be in zone 2. So that's just the classic talk test that I speak about, is that you should just be able to have a conversation like this on your own, you know, looking a bit of a psychopath out and about on the pavement, but you should be able to talk like this. You shouldn't be overstriding. If you've got like a smart watch and stuff like that, you should be like looking at the stats that are cadence. Basically, you want to be looking at your cadence to make sure the amount of times you step in isn't really, really fast and really erratic. It should be like nice and smooth in front of each other. You know, not overexerting yourself. Should just be the same pace throughout the entire run. Obviously, apart from the parts that you're walking in. Obviously, arms, you can't really run without your arms. So making sure those are swinging, left arm swings, right leg moves, you know, vice versa. Keeping yourself like upright, you know, head over, not like slumped over, because obviously if you're slumping, it's going to be hard for you to get the breaths in, the breathe in the air. And then it's just a classic that you hear people talk about, like breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth, and not just like sucking the air in all the time. You want to be conscious about like what you're doing. And then obviously you've got your warm up and your cool downs, pre and post run. So for me, you know, a warm up is good to kind of shake the legs out and stuff, but the cool down for me is like the most vital part. If you can nail the cool down and get good at that, that makes you feel miles better. Because a lot of us just go out for a run, you get nice and warm. You don't really have a cool down or a warm down or whatever. You just get back into your house, get in a shower, and you just sit down and you're done, and you just seize up. You go from really hot to really cold, and it's not really the best. So loosen yourself out a little bit, but the vital part for me is the cool down stretch. And that's what you need to be incorporating into your sessions. And obviously, I don't think there's many places in the UK that will allow you to run completely naked, so you need to be obviously conscious of your running gear. And you don't need to buy the absolute creme de la creme of running gear. You know, just get some like simple Nike shorts, simple Nike t-shirt and some white socks, you know, some running shoes. Running shoes I always use have been the Hoka's. Can't recommend them enough. The thick sole, nice and squishy. Never hurt my feet. You know, you can just plod along, but obviously people have got different preferences and stuff like that. A lot of people like jump on the hypes of the carbons and stuff. I've got a pair of carbons, but only use them for like intervals and stuff. They're absolutely pointless otherwise. So get a good pair of shoes that are cushioned, that you can go to these running shops that'll do gait analysis for you to find out the best shoes. So that might be an option for you to go to. But choose shoes wisely, because they're going to be on your feet for a lot of the time. Need some comfy ones get some good socks if you can. This is if you want to. Nothing wrong with just getting some plain socks, but I've got some Hilly twins. I think they're called just like Hilly twin socks. So like 2 socks inside that they don't give me any blisters, no friction, absolutely brilliant. Don't get any blisters in like the heat or the rain and stuff like that. So I can recommend them. Occasionally running a hat, which people might have seen. That's mainly to just stop the sweat dripping in my eyes. A hat seems to soak it up. And then a common one, which people forget if you're running more distances, is like chafing, which you don't think of, but then when it hits you and like inner thighs maybe start chafing, or like you get like nipple chafe off your t-shirt, that's kind of too late then. So obviously you can put plasters over like your nipples and stuff, and Vaseline, or there'll be some special cream that you can put like in between your legs and stuff to stop the chafing, but that's a big one that everyone forgets. I've done longer distances before where like your nipples have been bleeding and stuff, but it's not pleasant. Be mindful of that. And then the last one is probably the most obvious one in terms of like gear you need is your hydration and your fuel. So previous episodes I've spoken about like nutrition and stuff, but it's just as simple as like eating the right amount of carbs and eating at the right time before you run, getting all the right food in, and when you come back in, replenish those carb stores, getting some protein in for recovery. And if you're doing like longer runs, I normally have a gel every 30 minutes or so, depending on the distance. And then you've obviously got your water bottles with like, your water or water and electrolytes in. But I mainly just take, Haribo sweets that are just high in sugar, that just get you through it. That's something you need to test. If you're just starting off, is test the gels, because some of them do make you want to go to the toilet. And obviously when you're out, you get a bit stuck, there's nowhere to go. But you need to test this. Obviously electrolytes, most runners or people that train are having an electrolyte every day anyway, just as a drink. Add that into your daily diet, but you need to be testing these gels out, because I'll tell you from experience, when it hits you that you need the toilet and you're stuck and there's nowhere to go, it is a horrible feeling. You'll run miles quicker than you want to. It's not a nice feeling, thinking you're going to shit yourself, but it happens to all of us. Make sure you try your gels out and everything else. Make sure you try all your running gear out as well before you go out and take a massive run on. I used to like wear my running shoes or my football boots in the bath, and the heat and kind of mold to your feet. I don't know if that was a myth, but it helped me. You'll find all these little hacks and ways to get around it, but fuel correctly. If you don't fuel correctly, the runs or the intervals or whatever you've got going on will hurt, and you'll notice a massive difference if you just eat right before you train. So the last point is motivation. Now, when you first start, you'll be super motivated and you'll feel like the dog's bollocks. And then the motivation will stop or drop off around the time that the sessions start to get harder. So this is where you need to have created a strong habit and be trying to increase, your mental strength to carry on, even when those sessions, aren't going the best. So I think it's this where I was saying at the start, where you need to, even if your goal is to do the 5K intervals and you walk some of them, you still do the 5K intervals. And I think that slowly chips away at that little devil on your shoulder that's telling you to stop. So stick at it and create those habits early on. Because the more you quit early, the more likely you are to just carry on quitting further down the line and probably won't even finish it. I've kind of put down like a 2-minute rule that kind of I have. It's more like 2 to 5 minute rule, should I say, on those days that you're not feeling motivated. And I'll just kind of sit there and then create like a 2 to 5 minute deadline clock where I've not wanted to do it. And then I go, right, in 5 minutes, I'm definitely putting my shoes on. Quick alarm, quick timer. as soon as the alarm goes off, shoes are on, and then that kind of kicks my motivation to get me out the door, and then I'm off. Most of the time it'll work, sometimes it won't, but it's just sometimes a case for me that, like, don't sit down once you get back in from work, just get dressed, get out, just go for it whilst you're still up for it, because probably, as we all know, once you sit down and turn the telly on and stuff like that, motivation levels just fall through the ceiling and fall through the roof, fall through the floor, and yeah, you just won't want to do it. Track in your runs if you really wanted to. When you're first starting off, it might be part of the embarrassment that you don't want people to see your times, but I've always just been a case of just post them. Who really cares? That's just the same with life, but just post them, and it's all about you and your sessions. Don't give a shit about anyone else. So you can track them obviously through Strava or like through any of the running watch apps that you've probably got paired with your running watch. You can help, stay motivated by finding other people that are like-minded like you, or signing up to like park runs, obviously every Saturday. I think they're at 9 o'clock. It's been ages since I've done one, but I think it's 9 o'clock. You can obviously join there, and that's just like a communal running. You'll run 5k without even noticing. And, those are great places for people starting off. You meet a few people there that you potentially might run with outside, and that's when those habits and that motivation, that discipline just kick on and keep you just churning over. And, one final point, or a little point I'll say, is like, if you are getting bored about the same days that you're running on, mix it up, mix the sessions up. If it's like something I do, if it's like a long 19k, for example, and it's just a zone 2, I'll be like, bollocks to that. I'll do like 5k zone 2, 2k tempo, 2k, and then 2k of another tempo, and then I don't even know how much I've got there, 9k there. So then, 5k of interval training, whatever it is. And I know that's kind of like a mishmash, and you should obviously be training specifically intervals that day or tempo that day, but collectively I've done the 19k, and just that day I needed to just train like that to just get me through it, and that's just how I've done it. And who really cares? End of the day, my Strava says 19k. That's all that matters to me. So just getting it done, get the distances done each week, and just go from there. The motivation and the passion that you may have for the running will come later down the line. And that is pretty much all I had, based on what people have told me in like comments and messages and stuff. And that was like a whistle stop tour, which actually, looking at it, has turned out to be one of the longest episodes I've done for a while. Whistle stops tour for beginner runners. I've got it down, titles like Couch to 5k. People starting off, those are kind of the things you need to be looking at. Those are kinds of things you need to be conscious of and doing to progress you on to do that 5k, and then it's 5k to 10k, and then 10k, and all of a sudden you've got all the marathon gear, and you're doing an ultra marathon next week and stuff like that, but that'll come. But yeah, that was a whistle stop tour for new runners or beginner runners. If you've got this far, thank you very much for watching. If you do any of the things that I've said on the episode today, let me know in the comments or message me. Be interested to know like what you think of it. It's been a while since I've been a beginner runner, but I'm a runner and someone who exercises a lot with quite a bit of experience. So hopefully I've nailed everything. Hopefully I've covered everything. If you've not liked it, let me know. If you like it, let me know. Please continue to support us on all the socials. It means a lot for everyone who watches and has continued to watch all the way through since we started the podcast. Yeah, so if you've got anything else, let me know. If not, I will see you on the next one.